I'm going to record Al and I on my end so we can have that. All right. I think we are good to go. So John, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of introduce you and then have you give us a bio, and I'll kind of just feed you some questions. Al will do the same thing, and we're kind of shooting for about the 15-minute mark. So we just need to kind of keep on task, keep on target here, and I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back to another great episode of the show. We're excited to have John Gerard with us with Quail Homes. He's part of the Workforce Development Task Force here at the BIAW. And we've also got Al Audette, our Education and Workforce Development Director. Al, thanks for joining us. John, thanks for joining us. I was going to have you both just kind of give us a brief bio, kind of talk about your involvement in the Workforce Development Program here at the BIAW. John, I'll have you go first.
Sure. My name's John Gerard here in Vancouver, Washington. I own a company, Quail Homes. It's our 33rd year. And unfortunately, a lot of our workforce, at least half of it, has been around 25 years plus with us. So it's an aging workforce, and that's what's got me interested in the workforce development. I have a son that works with me who's 30, and I'm trying to see how I'm going to pass the baton. We need workers. So I want to start working on this.
That's great, John. Thanks. Al, tell us a little bit about what you do here at BIAW and your involvement in the workforce development.
Well, good morning. I am Al Audette. I am the Education and Workforce Development Director here at BIAW. I was a flooring installer for 30 years. I spent 8 years as the journal clerk at the House of Representatives, and 7 years ago I started here in government affairs, representing members during state agency rulemaking and at the State Building Code Council during code development. And I moved from that position into workforce development, one because being a flooring installer and pushing 50, I know that I could go out there and I could still be as busy as I ever wanted to be, because there really isn't anyone else jumping in to fill the jobs in our industry. So that is my motivation, and hearing John's brief bio there, and that's also my motivation, because folks like him are trying to grow their businesses, and we are all aware of a housing shortage we have. So getting workers in the pipeline is what we need to do to build the next generation of workforce.
That's perfect, Al. I appreciate that. Both of you, I appreciate your time and coming on the show with us. John, talk about your involvement in the task force here at the BIAW specifically. I definitely get the motivation that you have and trying to develop the future generations, and I think that's so important. But talk about, maybe some of the things that you're seeing, some of the things that you're doing. I know you have some projects down in Clark County on your end that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later on, but maybe talk about the task force and the importance of it and kind of some of the things that you guys are working on.
Yeah, the task force, I say we're at our infancy. We're just getting organized. And one of the areas that I'm focusing on within the task force, not necessarily locally, we'll talk about that later, but really is on the political end, because the education of kids is decided in Olympia, and graduation requirements is decided state superintendent's office. So this curriculum, we need to balance out, have different approaches so kids can graduate different pathways. You should be able to get credit for some of these vocational training classes the same as an English class as far as graduation goes. And right now it's geared towards more of an academic approach. In a sense, you can take some electives, but really you can't have a core curriculum designed around a kid graduating from vocational studies. So I think politically we're trying to just level that out a little bit. We're just at the beginning.
Sure. Maybe this may be a deep dive question, but why do you think it is? Why do you think that there's such a push maybe away from the vocations and towards other options as far as education and workforce?
I don't think it's really anybody's fault. If you go back 30 plus years ago, the way they thought they would lift people up, give them a hand up, was through education and college. I think just collateral damage has been the ignorance of not seeing that really the other side of it. You got to be balanced in your approach. I think we just got overbalanced more on the college approach, the 4-year type college, and we kind of left the vocational stuff on the side.
Wow. Al, I wanted to ask you, we're talking about the task force and it's maybe in some of its development stage. What are some of the goals that you and your team have as far as accomplishing? Obviously, it's to build the workforce. I get that, but maybe, kind of some smaller, more quickly attainable goals.
Well, I would absolutely agree with what John said, that for decades our schools focused on teaching to standardized tests and pushing kids towards college, and they really shop classes just kind of disappeared, and exposure to the trades went with it. So one of our goals is to introduce and tell our story of our industry to the next generation, which is in high school or in training now, and eventually we'd like to get into the middle schools and just engage with them and mentor some of these folks. Some of these programs that went away are actually trying to come back now, and so we're helping them get that curriculum and build their tool supplies and train their instructors and all of those things. And our overarching goal is to get our members engaged in those programs so that they can introduce these kids to what this industry is, the benefits of it, all the important stuff we do, and really for those kids who aren't going to go to college, it'll show them a path to a great career and an honorable profession.
That's good. John, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's pretty much spot on. It's very complex. You really ask why. I can give you an antidote. Part of it is getting the private sector back engaged with the education process. We've not been engaged. So one of my goals is to get some kids jobs. So somebody reached out to me that I know. They're both educators, high school level teachers. They have a single child. He's 20, frustrated with him because he doesn't want to go college route. That's all they know. Hey, you're going to college. I don't want to go to college. So there's been a struggle. So they called me in the springtime. Hey, can we get him out there in a job? Well, I got him in a job at a truss plant. And about 2 months later, the parent called me back and he says, I had no idea. I've been in this education bubble. I didn't even know stuff like this exists. And I think that's the first step, is just the awareness. This whole, whether you're working for one branch of a government or the education branch, that's where they live. They got all kinds of things they're dealing with. Just think of what schools are dealing with right now. So it's really hard for them to implement anything new or even think outside the box, as they're just in survival mode in a lot of cases.
Sure. It seems like it's more of a not anti construction and anti the trades. It's more just trying to survive, exactly what you said, and just trying to get through the day. And then you add COVID-19 to all that, and it just complicates it even more.
And I don't think that anybody was really, their desires were actually to help kids. By going through college, the byproduct is you could do well in life. I think that goal is still there. There's just other tools that you can use to help more kids. And I'll share a success story down here when you're ready.
Okay, that would be great. Did want to talk a little bit about what you're doing specifically in Clark County. I know that you're kind of developing something. Would you talk about that?
Yeah, and that'll come now with what I just mentioning, a real success. So I actually feel the desire's high out there, but I feel like I'm a little bit alone in the desire to do something about it. It's the craziest thing that I've seen. Even within our own local BIA, it's not a priority. And so I decided on my own, I'm networked in. I've been doing this a long time. So I've reached out to some school districts. And basically, Evergreen School District, particularly at Evergreen High School, we pitched an idea about building a skilled trades building, about a 60 by 80 building where inside of it we could teach kids construction, particularly building tiny homes. So I go get this meeting put together, and I am not kidding you. The excitement from the superintendent on down was unbelievable. We're in, we want to do it. It was basically a one call close. We're in.
Wow.
Okay. So then I've had a couple of meetings. We had a meeting yesterday, but first let me go back to that first meeting. The superintendent pulled me over to the side and he says, John, I don't think you realize what you're doing for us. Well, what do you mean? I said, you're going to help us more. It's not about a building. It's about changing the identity of a school. So where you have schools that really you have the demographics behind them, good sports teams and all this stuff, those schools are thriving. The schools that are more in the inner city or maybe more diverse schools, they're still trying to figure out their way. And so this particular school, Evergreen, falls into that. They have a fairly high free and reduced lunch, a lot of different diversity at the school, and they're struggling of really the identity of the school. They really struggle with it. And so they caught on this saying, this is perfect. This fits our group. And so I had a meeting yesterday with same thing, the leadership, because now we're starting to get into the planning stages of getting a building. So we want this thing operational by the fall of 22. So there's a lot to do before then. And so I'm listening, and they brought in a vice principal of the school. They have 120 kids forecasted. They've committed to hiring 2 new teachers they'll have 4 instructors. Part of the deal we made with them is I need a liaison to work with. We interviewed and hired one already. So these guys are on board. And what I learned about it, part of it is the identity of school, which is really important to them. But the bigger part is they see they can keep kids in school. So think about that for a minute. A school basically gets their funding. The districts gets their funding by keeping kids in school. When they lose kids, they lose funding. So they see this as just an amazing tool to help them, which I didn't really anticipate.
That's exciting. That's exciting for sure. I almost don't even have the words to talk about how wonderful that is. John, thank you for doing that. Thank you for caring enough to do that. And that's amazing. Well, the title of our podcast is called the BIAW Drill Down. So let's drill down here. I'm going to ask you both the question. Al, I'll have you answer first. Talk about the importance of developing our workforce in the construction industry, in the trades, both for the current generation, the workforce now, and for the future.
Well, like we talked about earlier, when the schools are really pushing students towards colleges and that sort of thing, that only sent some students on a path to failure and debt, but it depleted the construction workforce pipeline. There simply aren't enough younger workers choosing the trades. For instance, according to the Associated Builders and Contractors, construction businesses will need to hire 430,000 workers this year and 1 million more over the next 2 years in order to keep up with the demand of new home construction and, of course, remodeling projects, since people are working from home these days. At the beginning of the pandemic, construction sector lost more than 1 million workers. Now, according to the Department of Labor, the construction industry is recouping 80% of its workforce, but that's still down 238,000 workers from pre-pandemic levels, and that's as of June. And according to the Association for Career and Technical Education, construction is one of the top 5 industries for good jobs that pay a median income of $55,000 without a bachelor's degree. So, as for the future, we need workers, and we need them now. And also for the future, the folks coming in, they can get a good job, they can start now, and they don't have the debt that people are coming out of college with. For instance, me, I went to college, I spent a couple years there, I didn't finish because I found the trades, and quite frankly, I knew before I went there that college wasn't for me. So increasing the access to these training programs. One thing we've done at a college in Seattle is we set up an evening program that's going to upskill these workers. So like John said earlier, thinking out of the box, creating new programs and new pipelines for these workers is how we introduce them and how we get them interested and excited about joining the trades and, replacing our aging workforce that we have now and setting us up for the future.
That's great. John, same question to you. What is the importance of developing that workforce in the construction industry, in the trades, both for now and for the future?
Well, I think the importance is understated, is that we've got maybe a generation or two that have forgotten how to work. So there's a lot of work to do just to instill pride in people of the value of work. And you could say it's a trade, but it isn't just trades. Our industry supports. It isn't just home building. It's construction, land use attorneys, CPAs, civil engineers, all kinds of stuff, structural engineers. But the fact of the matter is, if kids aren't introduced to it, they don't even know it's there. We need quality. We just don't need people by default coming into our industry. We need to get the spin on it that it's a great career path. There's a lot of independence financially. They can meet just whatever in the industry. We can compete with anybody. And what was exciting about this Evergreen School is the vice principal that was talking. He says, we want to attract quality kids in here. So that kid who wants to be this or wants to be that, why can't they come in and learn how to do some home building? Doesn't mean they have to get into the industry, but we want to really upgrade the quality of their vocational training programs. And I think us as an industry, we want to go recruit quality. I don't think we think about that enough.
That's good.
Just think, if you want a good team, what do?
You got to go for quality.
You want work ethic. Well, that's what we need in our industry, because what we do is hard. Every home we deliver, I guarantee you the home buyers nitpick it. We need quality. You needed quality people to do it.
That's great. Thanks, John. Real quick, closing remarks. John, anything else you want to say before we close the show?
I think this topic of workforce development is talked about, but look what happened here. Here I'm just a guy that decided to go try some stuff, and look what happened relatively quick. The opportunity is upon us. Our job really at the BIAW, with the help of Al and some others, is to show the path that it's possible. It's not an impossible task. Quit whining about it and just roll up our sleeves and go do something.
That's great. Al, any closing remarks from you?
I think John summed it up very nicely. And I think one of the most important things he just said is just try. And we need more people like John to just get out there and do it. Talking about it isn't going to solve the problem.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in participating in our workforce development task force in the program, feel free to contact BIAW. You can talk with Al and his team. We would be happy to do that. Anything that the BIAW can do to help facilitate that. John, thanks for what you're doing down in Clark County. We appreciate that. We appreciate your involvement in both the workforce development task force and the involvement with the BIAW. As we were putting some of the episodes together here for our initial few episodes for our podcast, several people told me, hey, John Gerard is one to talk to. So we appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Andy. Thanks, Al.
Thank you, John.
All right. We'll see you next week.
I'll email this off to you, okay?
Okay, I really appreciate that, John. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I did test it yesterday, and everything went through as far as our test. You down there, I don't know what it caused it, but the Microsoft Teams seems to saved our bacon, so I appreciate that.
No problem. All right, take care.
All right, you too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.